rush your program to you, and we'll even cover shipping on our end. You'll be able to start speaking another language within just 10 days. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to learn the mechanics of how a language works, or just how to speak it? Can you imagine what it's going to feel like to just know what to say without scouring your memory for vocabulary or worrying about grammar? Can you imagine what it's going to feel like to have that perfect accent, to feel comfortable in a foreign country, to know that learning any language you want is just 10 short days away? I bet you can, and I bet you can feel how much you want this right now. Over 25 million people around the world have learned a second language the simple, easy way with Pimsleur, and you can too. I hope you learned a lot from this presentation and were both inspired and encouraged to learn a new language. Thank you for your time today. Still here? Let me just answer some of the most common questions you might have about the Pimsleur approach to language learning and how you can start speaking any language in just 10 days, even if you don't know a single word now. I took language classes for years in school and never got anywhere. Can I really start speaking a language in just 10 days? The short answer is absolutely. We sometimes think that schools have a vested interest in making it take a long time to learn a language. After all, the longer it takes, the more money they make. In college, usually only third and fourth year classes are conversational. Unfortunately, language learning is treated like math or science, and that's exactly what it isn't. When you learn to speak by ear, you'll find that you intuitively grasp the language. What if instead you learned to speak at a high degree of proficiency first, and then learned everything else? At least you'd be thinking and speaking in the language for 4 years and wouldn't forget it for life. How is this different than Rosetta Stone? The short answer is that it's 100% audio-based and doesn't require a computer. Dr. Pimsleur found that the most effective way to learn to speak is by ear, and one of the advantages of using an audio program is that it's portable and easy to use. That means you can use it while you're doing something else, like going to work, doing the dishes, working out, and so forth. We've had a lot of customers who have bought Rosetta Stone, and the common feedback is that it's fairly impractical. You see, most customers who buy language learning courses are at least 35 years old, educated, and work behind a computer all day. It's really difficult to make time at home after work. Will I be able to read and write in a foreign language after using this program? The short answer is no. And here's why that's a good thing. Dr. Pimsleur found that focusing on reading and writing before learning to speak makes it very difficult to learn a language. He wanted to find a way to allow adults to learn faster than children, and essentially, it meant adults needed to learn like children, and that's done by hearing. As Dr. Pimsleur used to say, when you know what sounds right, everything else is easy, and that includes reading and writing. We'd suggest going to your local college bookstore and buying a textbook if you want to learn to read and write. We only focus on oral proficiency. That being said, if you're learning a language with an alphabet similar to English, like German, French, Italian, and so forth, after learning to speak, when moving on to reading, you'll experience a feeling like seeing an English word written on paper that you perhaps had only ever heard by ear before. In other words, it feels familiar. I don't have a lot of free time. Can I use the Pimsleur approach? Absolutely. Just listen 30 minutes a day on your iPod, MP3, or CD player. If you can't listen in one session, then break it up. And remember, you can learn anywhere, and there's always 30 minutes in a day. You don't need to repeat a lesson more than once. I've always had trouble with my thick accent. Will the Pimsleur approach help me? You definitely don't want to learn your second language from someone who learned it as a second language. The Pimsleur approach uses only native speakers as teachers. This means you'll learn to speak without an American accent. There's a very special methodology used in the course that really lets you hear a word. You'll find it neat when you try it. This is one of the most effective ways to nail the accent. That's why many actors use the Pimsleur approach when they need to take on foreign roles. You can even make yourself sound like a foreigner speaking English, at least the ones who didn't use our English course. Aren't I too old to learn a new language? I thought only kids could learn a new language easily. You're never too old. Can you believe that Dr. Pimsleur discovered that adults can learn a language even faster than kids? For each minute of instruction, he could create a building block of knowledge that would have taken a child 4 to 5 hours to be exposed to in a natural environment. And he could sequence his lessons using memory decay patterns so that words were reintroduced in new structures, allowing his students to learn something new while repeating something previously learned and not feeling like they were memorizing. If the Pimsleur approach works so well, why isn't everybody using it? Why are our schools still making kids do vocabulary drills and grammar tests? I'm sure you've heard of many people complaining about our school system and trying to change it. Even Bill Gates built a public school here in Philadelphia to try new approaches to learning. Right now, there are federally mandated educational standards like No Child Left Behind that force teachers to only teach for a test that caters to the lowest mental common denominator. And ongoing school funding is tied to reaching minimum scores on those standardized tests. That's why you hear of scandals where teachers are incented to help their students cheat, because otherwise they would lose their job or their school could be forced to close due to a lack of federal funding. Fortunately, there are a few progressive teachers like Mary Snipes who teaches Spanish at a high school in Arizona. She uses Pimsleur in her class and had to pay for the course out of her own pocket. Did you know that many schools are so strapped for cash that they only ever plan to buy textbooks every 10 years? Isn't that incredible? You know, when it comes to schools, one day when our company can finally breathe for a moment, since we've been growing like gangbusters since 2002, we're going to challenge all of the textbook companies that sell to schools. We've joked over here about the massive change we could create. What if we gave schools our language courses and only charged them money for any students who didn't get an A or B, because that would be the school